The transfer window is nearly open. In fact, looking at my calendar, the clock really is ticking down to this transfer window opening. And in fact, Arsenal may have already got some business done early, but maybe not early enough for everybody. We're going to talk about that and plenty more in today's Arsenal transfer show with a very special guest. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. I'm joined this morning by the one, the only, the host of the Latte Firm. It's FK. How you doing, mate? You good, you well?
Good morning, Tom. Very, very well. Every time your intro video music comes on, it just makes me want to dance. I love it. I love it. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. What do the kids say? It hits different. I think that's the phrase. I think.
Yeah, something like that. Don't ask me.
Listeners will be going, "Oh God, Dad, what are you doing?" I can say that now as a 30-year-old man. I can start talking about dadhood. It's coming in the years to come, I'm sure. Speaking of, how is it on your side? Who is genuinely a father?
Yeah, it's good, mate. We're sort of battling through half term. The kids go back to school in a couple of days' time, so really excited about that and very happy that the season is over, Tom. I get to spend the summer now dreaming of what if only, and looking ahead to the new season. So looking forward to the break, actually, to be honest. The summer is going to be a long one, no international football. Looking forward to just unwinding, taking a bit of time out from Arsenal and seeing what we do in the transfer market.
Absolutely. I mean, as this goes out on Saturday morning, I should update you listeners, by the way. The reason there's not a show, and I would have told you this on Friday morning show, but I am on a stag do. It's the stag do of the wedding that's stopping me from going on the Arsenal tour this summer. So I know, I know. So that's happening. So I'm currently away this weekend in Bristol, but as usual, I do not want to leave you in the lurch without an 8 a.m. show. So I'm recording one today. You're going to have one tomorrow. I think I know who the guest is. It's pretty good, but not as good as FK. But I don't want to say just in case they cancel on me last minute. So yeah, we'll wait and see. It's someone in the biz who knows what they're talking about. But when it comes to the YouTube content scene, is there a better man who knows what he's talking about, who can host a better post-match Twitter live stream? I don't know. I don't think there is. But FK, you've obviously heard from fans all season as to their views on every single game. How would you say the mood is right now? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not getting good vibes, is what I would say.
Well, you're in the firing line, aren't you, Tom? Because you've got to break us all the news that we want to read and hear about. And of course, when things don't work as fast as people want, then you guys are going to get it. What is the mood like? Look, I think without being too sensational, the mood is one of sadness, disappointment, frustration. I think it's been a testing season. Look, for me personally, mentally draining. I think that the 2 years that we had prior to this season were of such excitement, such optimism and hope. And actually, the first title race that we had was unexpected, didn't it? Wasn't it? It was like it came a year early. Last year was massively disappointing to take it to the last weekend. And then, of course, the summer window happened. We didn't do much. The January window came. We didn't add anything, despite Saka getting injured before Christmas. And then as soon as January shut, Havertz goes and gets injured. And, of course, Jesus got injured midway through. So there's frustration, I think, all throughout. And there are reasons why we didn't sort of compete this season. But I think a lot of people are now moving into a phase of expectation, like they are waiting for Arsenal to do something big this summer. I know that feels like a broken record, Tom. We talk about that almost every season. This summer has got to be it. This has got to be it. But there is genuine excitement around what maybe Berta is going to do, what Arteta is going to do. That shake-up at sort of C-suite level. Josh Kroenke's been in town. So, yeah, I think, excitement, expectation, excitement through gritted teeth. Expectation well, there you go. But I think there is a lot of pressure on this transfer window to come over the summer, and I would say that the expectation is probably the word.
Yeah, I think standards have been set very high for this window. Arteta himself, I think, has also built that up. The things that he said in more of the recent press conferences as well, saying things like, we need goals, we need creativity, we need numbers, was one of the things he said after the Southampton game when I said I basically pulled the short straw of being I'm going to be the guy that asks about the 101 years since we've had 2 double-digit goal scorers not being in the side in the league this season. And he basically said, but we're not going to leave a stone unturned, when it comes to trying to find ways to make sure that doesn't happen again. And obviously in hinting towards the mythical centre forward. As we are recording this on Wednesday, just to give you listeners a glimpse behind the curtain, Wednesday evening, I put a piece out today which was basically detailing that talks this week have taken place. Arteta told us as much that would be happening, and just to give people a little bit more insight, it's those talks are around what is going to be happening this summer, and the response to that was one of frustration, I think, around, well, why hasn't this been sorted out already? Why do there still need to be decisions made? So where do you kind of land on this? Is there any frustration for you that, the plans aren't finalized to the last detail on this when we're, a day as this goes out now away from the window opening?
I think a lot of work goes into identifying players and making moves with players and their agents and their families. I think the work probably started months ago. I think we got to be really careful about the noise that we hear and how we digest it and how we believe some of that stuff. There is no substance in believing that Arsenal are only going to start thinking about the transfer window when it opens. Like, let's get real here. We would have had a short list. Bert has been brought in to sort of work on this, and I'm sure we've been very proactive in terms of our behaviours and our engagements with potential prospects over the last few months. Probably going back to last summer, to be fair, because we were after some players that maybe we sort of missed out. I think there are also lessons to be learned from previous windows. Arsenal, I think, will realise that we really fumbled the bag after last summer, not adding any sort of wide talent, or forward talent. Raheem Sterling was our only option. Then Edu, of course, came out the next day and sort of apologised, almost saying he wasn't our number one target. Then January to not add anyone, it's borderline negligence, Tom. So sure. It's frustrating to not hear the hype and the noise and the excitement and the progress that you would want as a fan, but we have to just wait. I mean, the transfer window opens, like you say, this coming week. It then takes a few days off for the Club World Cup, which is mental. And then it reopens again for the majority of the summer. So we'll have to see how it kind of unfolds. But no, I'm not going to get frustrated. I think that's also a reflection of my age, Tom. I've been around a long time. So I kind of know how these windows work, and I know the noise associated with Arsenal. We are easy prey at the moment, aren't we? In the media for clicks and sensational headlines. And we heard Thierry Henry on the overlap being sort of quite critical of how we're just building and nothing sort of coming of it. So that's just the way that it is. But I'm not going to lose my cool until it's all over.
How much pressure do you think there is on this season then? Because I mean, with the summer as well, obviously, but you mentioned those Thierry Henry quotes. I know listening to this, people would have had time to absorb them, and we may have even discussed it on the show already by this point. But it seems everyone is piling the pressure very much on this summer and this season. I think to a degree, rightfully. there is a level of expectation. There is now 5 seasons gone without lifting a piece of silverware. Those lot down the road, no matter what you think of the Europa League, and I certainly personally don't think of it too highly, as is very clear to our listeners, have lifted something themselves, which adds that angst. We're recording this actually as the Chelsea game is currently ongoing, so we don't know the result of that as this stands. But whatever has happened there, hopefully the chat box are laughing as I'm typing this, because Betis have done something amazing. But when it comes to kind of that pressure on Arsenal, how does that translate to you? Like, are you one of those that looks at it and goes, this season is a trophy is a must, and if one doesn't come, then we're in a very, very difficult scenario with the manager? Or are you very much like, we just need to be continuing to compete and show that we're one of the most viable clubs to potentially lift those trophies? And if not, where else do you go from there?
Betis are currently 1-0 up. So let's hope that
this is
continues.
Terrible. Those the chat box like, sorry, it won't last.
I know, exactly. But look, let me start with my expectations, Tom. My expectations are for a club of Arsenal size and stature, and everything that we have in terms of our wealth and our pull and our status. I want us to be competing on all fronts every season. Right? You want to be as close to the top of the table as you can. You want to be going strong in both domestic cups. And if you get a European Cup run, fantastic. The ultimate utopia is to win a trophy or 2 or 3 or even 4, dare I say. The reality is, where we've come from in the sort of 5 years, we were a mess of a club, shambles, toxic environment. individual star players on ridiculous contracts. Arteta came in, he steadied the ship, we won the cup, and of course he shed the entire team, and now he's cobbled together this team over 4 or 5 windows, and we've come so close for the big prize, and disappointing on the cup front. I cannot deny that. Some of the memories that we've had in isolation, the Real Madrid games, the Manchester City sort of win this season in isolation, great memories, but just not quite enough. I think there is pressure now, in that Arteta has had a long time. We have spent money, but let's not be, let's be serious. There are other clubs have also spent money, and when you sort of average it out, it's about 120, 130 million pounds a year. That's not much, really, when you've got clubs that have been spending 50 million pounds plus on players for more than 20 years. So, but he has had time, and we have come excruciatingly close to the Premier League. I think the cup runs have been massively disappointing, particularly this season. I know we got to the semi-final of the League Cup, but we didn't really turn up. The third round defeat in the FA Cup to United was massively frustrating, and we should be better than that. Yeah. So the pressure is absolutely on. The pressure starts with the window. Everyone is expectant of some big moves from Arsenal. We would be massively disappointed if we didn't learn from our last 2 windows, and if there's any sort of repeat where we bring in a lone player up top, or we can't add a striker, I mean, there could be mayhem on the streets. So let's not sort of pretend it is a serious window, but a serious opportunity for Arsenal Football Club. And next season, context is king, Tom. If we miss out marginally and we're in the title race, let's say, until the final weekend again, you can forgive missing out. Like, sometimes it's just fine margins, and if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. 1 or 2 decisions go against you, as we've sort of felt this season. But if we're out of the title race by March, if we're dumped out early in the cups, if we don't get further than, let's say, the last sort of 8 of the Champions League, given where we've how we've done this year, then you can understand why the criticism goes towards Arteta mainly, and the board, and the new director of football. And I think there will be many of the fan base who will be very willing to have a conversation about life beyond Mikel. So for me, it's all about context, and I am expecting, like I say, us to have a strong window, and I am expecting Arsenal to pick up a piece of silverware next year.
Yeah, all I want from this window is to put it into a position where I can only look at the manager, if that makes sense. I don't want to be like I am this season, where you've drawn 13, 14 games. We have failed to score more than 0 or 1 goal in so many of our fixtures. We've dropped 21, 22 points from winning positions this season. But I can point to the fact that Arteta was left short. I can point to the fact that we've had injuries that we've just not had the squad to deal with. I can point to these things that give him, context, that word, as you were just discussing. And what I want from this window is to remove that from the conversation if things aren't going the way that we want them to next season, so that I can look to the coach and be like, no, this is on you. If it's not going, this is on you. And we have to have that awkward conversation. Obviously, I don't want to be having that conversation. I want to be talking about us lifting a trophy in the Champions League and the title and whatever. But that's really what I want from the window, is to remove any form of what some people describe. I call them reasons, others call them excuses. I want the window to remove that from the conversation. And for me, I've said this on stream, I think we have to have a 9 out of 10 window at the minimum. Really, anything less than that, I don't think is good enough, because last summer was not good enough. The January window was a deplorable failure. And the thing is, we've got something tangible that we've not had before, is that the people that were in charge of those windows are not here. Edu was in charge of the last summer window, not here. Jason Ato was fronting a lot of the business that was going to happen, but didn't in January. He's not going to be here. We've got a new guy in charge of recruitment. He's working with Arteta. He's got wealths of wealths. Is that a word? Wealths? He's got a wealth.
He brings a wealth of experience.
Yes, the writer here is trying to speak English. He has a wealth of experience in this position in an elite club, working with a very volatile coach in a league where he is at a disadvantage immediately to Barcelona and Real Madrid, and has won titles and trophies and taken them to Champions League finals with the work that he's done. So were you happy when it was announced that Andrea Berta was going to be our new sporting director?
Look, I got to confess, I didn't know much about him before he was actually announced, Tom, and he wasn't a name that was, there was someone on my mind as, we got to go out and get this guy.
Yeah.
Same. But when you look into his track record, like you say, being in an environment where he was up against two massive teams, very much Atletico with the underdogs. They had their La Liga success. They got to Champions League finals. They bought and sold pretty well, and they bought established stars. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who has the pull and the connections to go out and get the biggest names in world football that we can afford. I'm looking for someone to take ruthless decisions when it comes to selling some of our stars. And Arteta's already started that. We saw that with Ramsdale. We all had a very soft spot for Aaron. Yeah. And it was time to move him on. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? Why are we doing this? And now 2 years later, I'm like, sorry if I've just ruined the video. Oh my
it's
bad.
8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God!
What are you doing?
Of course
no, you're fine.
And most importantly, I think we saw with Arsene Wenger, he by default ended up having so much control of the club. I think it's really important in this day and age in modern football for Mikel to do the Mikeling. Let him do the managing, the coaching, and let someone come in who's got that aura and that gravitas to challenge. And I want him to keep Mikel on his toes, and I want him to challenge and have proper grown-up debates about don't get this player, get this player because it makes sense for whatever model that we're trying to build. So I'm looking for a number of things, and so far it's really early days. I like what he's done with the coaching staff contracts. I like the noise that is coming out in terms of the players that we want to sign. I'm sure we'll talk about those shortly. But it's very, very early. I mean, jury's obviously out. This summer is big. The pressure is massive on Andrea Berta. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what it brings.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking in my head now, how do I'm going to find a funny way of having to bleep out your swear word that we've used, because the joy is this is recorded.
So sorry.
No, it's fine. I've never had to be able to do it before, so I'm going to have to find a way of doing it. I'm looking forward to it now to see if the listeners, if you're listening to this now, obviously as you will be live, you will have seen my handiwork at doing such a thing. So I'm curious how that goes down. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see how it goes, because I think it's a very un-Arsenal-like move. I really expected like a Thomas Rosicky, who, if you've seen recent news about him, we send all the well wishes in the world in his recovery. But I did expect someone like that, or Jason Ato to be promoted into the position. That was kind of what I felt Arsenal would do. But I'm really glad they broke the mold and went down the experience route and brought in the guy that's been working at the level for a club like Atleti with a coach like Simeone for so many years. And yeah, it's very un-Arsenal. Do you feel as though that Arteta will be challenged? How do you feel about that dynamic? Because I know there was all those stories that came out saying they'd already had scraps and disagreements. For the record, rubbish. But like, what's your sense about kind of that dynamic between those? Because Arteta is a big presence and a big personality.
I'm glad you clarified, Tom, because obviously the noise, as a layperson who's sort of not in the media game, you read these articles and your mind does wander. You start thinking, have they fallen out? Have they already had disagreements around players? Yeah. Look, I think disagreement.
I'm not saying that they won't I'm not saying they won't have like disagreement. Like they might. Yeah. One guy might prefer this guy. One guy that's just by definition disagreement. But people just think and blanket the term disagreement is fisticuffs. So
no, listen, disagreements are healthy, and that's further reinforces my point. Actually, I don't want a yes man. I don't want a former Arsenal player legend who's just going to go with the sort of waves that we're going on. Like, I want someone to challenge. I want someone to stand up to Mikel. It's way too early to even suggest what the dynamics could be like. You're right, Mikel Arteta. I was going to call him Mikel Arteta has an aura because of his presence and the time that he served at the club. He's probably one of the most longest standing members of the sort of managerial elite at Arsenal, right? So, and the coaches around him are sort of younger than him, and maybe that's for a reason. So, I think I want to see that challenge. I want to see them have disagreements, but I need them to be decisive. Like, even if they have disagreements and even if they, fall out or don't see eye to eye, they have to be professional. We have to let Arteta do what he's best at. We have to let Berta do what he's best at. And they've got to be decisive and act fast, because we're seeing it already, mate. Liverpool, before they'd even lifted the league title, Florian Wirtz is in town today. Jeremy Frimpong sorted. Milos Gyokeres, like, he's the guy that they're sort of eyeing up for left back. You seen tonight Chelsea, we're at the time of recording, they're playing a cup final yet half an hour ago. Then the news broke about Liam Delap. Like they are, and they're sniffing around Benjamin Sesko. So like big clubs are not going to stand still, and we cannot faff this market basically.
No, we can't. We absolutely cannot afford to mess this up. We cannot be ending the window without recruitment in the forward area, the wide area, the midfield, the defence, the backup keeper, arguably creative midfield as well. Although, as I've mentioned on Wednesday morning show, that the club are very conscious of the pathways of Winery and Dowman in particular in that area of the field, so that could impact things, which is fair enough. But
well,
yeah,
I disagree, right, Tom. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I love it. Go on.
Very rude of me, but I think
this is now me and FK in a fight, just like Andrea Berta and Arteta.
Berta and Arteta.
Disagree.
This is it. I think Wanyeri is a very exciting prospect, and I think Max Dowman, the stuff that he's doing at sort of youth level is insane, like frightening.
Yeah.
But we are too big, Tom. Too big a club in a sport and in a world where success is demanded yesterday to wait to see how these both prosper. Now, I'm not suggesting that we bring in 22, 23-year-olds to come in and sort of like be the ceiling to these guys. Like Dowman is no doubt the future of Arsenal. Wanyeri is no doubt the future of Arsenal, but they're young boys and we play in the Premier League. Like, you know, we are going up against well-oiled machines in Liverpool and City and Chelsea and Newcastle, and there's going to be other clubs that are going to come strong next season. Like, I don't know if we can just wait and see if Dowman's going to be the answer at 10, or if we wait and see for Wanyeri to get going. Like, Wanyeri looked great in those cameo appearances maybe, 2-3 months back? But until the final, apart from Southampton, he hadn't really had much game time. So are we really going to rely on this kid to pull us through? I'm not sure. Like, I still think we need reinforcements, and I would hope that Arteta and Berta are not pinning their hopes on these two to save us.
Are you an Eze boy?
Love him.
Yeah,
love him. Look, I'm going to confess, like, I don't watch him every week. Obviously, there's no doubt. You know, everyone's watched all the compilations. We've seen what he did in the cup run this year. He's a big game player, former Arsenal boy, all of that sort of stuff. I love that he's Premier League proven. I love that he's, probably the right age profile, can play left side, can play 10, can play maybe in a deeper midfield role. There's a lot to like about him. That said, would he be top of my list? Not in terms of names, but just in terms of position. You know, he's not a centre forward. He's not really an out and out winger. I've said for a long time on my sort of channel and my shows that I want a powerhouse midfielder. I want, if Jorginho's being let go and if Zubimendi's the guy that comes in, I'd like another Declan Rice. I know that's not possible, but I want someone who is a box to box endurance athlete. You know, just gallops through the pitch, eats up the grass, physically robust, like players bouncing off him. That sort of, Morgan Rogers type. I would love that. So yeah, look, Eze he would be a fantastic addition. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't want Eze at Arsenal. Of course I do, but I just think there are probably other players, other positions that I'd want to address first.
That's fair enough. I've been talking waxing lyrical about Eze and potentially his addition to the team, because I think if we do add somebody there, and I'm not against it, it has to be someone that I think can play in multiple areas, so that the pathway is still considered in a way, and like you can, still utilize the talent you've brought in and offer this route through these youngsters playing potentially with the player you've still brought in, just them playing elsewhere. Pre-season's going to be really exciting, especially for those that can go.
You're not bitter, are you?
I'm not bitter, not in any way. But it's going to be exciting for a number of reasons. I think obviously Dowman's part of that, and that's an element. I think we'll probably be discussing that in the next couple of weeks as one of the shows that we'll be pre-recording while I'm away on holiday. But from the point of view of timings of signings, we've had it before where Calafiori, I think, came in while we were away, wasn't he? Because he joined up with the squad. He didn't play, but he joined up with the squad in America. Mikel Marino came in very late in the window, then got injured in his first training session and was out for 2 months. That people forget. That was it feels like an age ago that happened now. And they were really young. Obviously, Sterling on deadline day, Neto on deadline day. Arsenal didn't sign a single player last summer before our first pre-season game. That has to be a no-no this time around.
Yeah, look, if it meant that we went towards the end of the window but brought in prolific players, I wouldn't I wouldn't mind. But to
saying
wait,
you don't want a Sterling round 2? I'm getting that vibe.
What, Sterling round 2 early doors? Yeah. No, I think
So if he comes in day one, it's fine. Sterling on day one.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense now. Yeah.
No, I think the club have got. Oh, Tom, you just reminded me how miserable that window was. I think the club have got to act, and we have to. But like I say, it goes back to being decisive. There is obviously no international tournament, so you would think that maybe players would be easier to get sort of in quicker. I think, Mikel, before we set off to Singapore, where we're playing AC Milan and Newcastle from memory.
Yeah.
It would be lovely to get the boys integrated into the squad, and the whole sort of like travel together and stay, be roommates and all that sort of stuff, and just be in and around the gang. Weirdly, we've got the North London derby, haven't we, towards the end of July in where's that? Is that Singapore as well? Is that Hong Kong?
I think it's
Can't remember.
The Hong Kong one. Yeah.
Somewhere in the Far East.
I put that to the back of my mind, mate. I'm not there. I don't care.
I just can't believe they're playing a North London derby, but there we are.
Kong, yeah.
So it would be ideal, but you got to bear in mind also that the window opens 1st of June, shuts 8-9 days later, then is closed for a week because of the Club World Cup, and then reopens. And annoyingly, and I've been not campaigning for this, but I say it every sort of year, the window should shut before the first weekend of the Barclays. Agreed. But it doesn't. So yeah, look, we all live in hope that we get something done sooner rather than later. It feels like Zubimendi, of course, will be the first to come through the doors, but we need more.
We do, no, without a doubt. We need, but it is a good sign. The Zubimendi stuff is happening early, and that should bring encouragement. It doesn't seem like it has, and I think the reason it hasn't is because I feel like if this news dropped today that Arsenal were on the verge of signing Martin Zubimendi, I think there would be such a buzz around that signing. But because we've kind of known about it for the last 5 months nearly, I think that's taken kind of the gloss and the shine off of this. Because in my mind, FK, the signing of Zubimendi, he's the best number 6 that was available on the market this summer. Obviously, it appears that Thomas Partey is being extended for another year and an option, which is a separate conversation. But that gives Arsenal and Arteta, Rice, Partey, Zubimendi. I mean, that is a wealth of quality depth, in the squad. So do you get that sense that maybe if Zubimendi was happening now, rather than having known about it for ages and it basically have been done since January, that there may be more excitement about this deal?
Yeah, look, potentially. I think social media sucks the life out of us when it comes to transfer speculation, and Arsenal fans, from cloud formation to hedge trimmings to plain sort of analysis in terms of where the flight trackers are. We're on top of all of this stuff. Make no mistake though, Tom, when Zubimendi is announced as an Arsenal player and the Arsenal.com do their thing and you get the images of him in an Arsenal shirt, the juices will be flowing very, very quickly, believe me. But look, in terms of Zubimendi, and you sort of reeled off the midfield collection we've got there, Zubimendi, Rice and Partey, I don't think that's enough. I know Odegaard is obviously there, but he's an attacking player. I know Miles Lewis-Skelly can play there. Kai Havertz, if we had a forward, might drop back into that left eight. And we've got Mikel Merino, who we mustn't forget, a bit of an unsung hero in that sort of last quarter of the season. But again, goes back to my point. If you want to be ruthless and you want to be aggressive in your pursuit of trophies and you want to go strong in as many competitions as you can, this game is about numbers now. You need that depth. If Partey goes out, Partey's had an exceptional season in terms of availability. Declan Rice too. It is a matter of time until they need a rest or a rotation. And, for me, again, I go back to the sort of Morgan Rogers situation. If Villa are open to offers for players for PSR and all that sort of jazz, that is the profile of player that I would love. So I still think we're short, but you can be excited about Zubimendi, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's one of those where Arsenal are a victim of their own proactiveness on that front. He's a player that's transcended several different sporting directors. Edu, Ato, and Andrea Berta have all had a hand in this deal and this situation. It's coming to a head with Arsenal now, which is good to see. But of course, so much more is needed, and it is needed before the pre-season starts. The first game for Arsenal is on July 23rd. That is against AC Milan. I almost forget we're playing Milan because all the attention has been on the Spurs and Newcastle games. That Milan in Singapore is the first fixture, and hopefully we see a brand new striker. To end off the show very swiftly, I've been asking people a one-word question. So it means you don't get to elaborate, you don't get to explain your answer, and the chat box have to wonder why on earth you've picked. But Sesko or Gyokeres?
Gyokeres.
FK, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and catching up with you again. I'm going to let you go off and watch the embarrassing defeat that Chelsea have suffered. We don't know, by the way. It's half time. I could have really embarrassed myself there. But I hope I haven't. But thank you, FK Jenny. Make sure you give your channel a shout and tell people they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Listen, Latte Firm, in case you've not heard of it, Arsenal-related chat. We have match reaction videos on a match day. We do post-match phone-ins on X. And during the summer, there will be a new The Daily Grind transfer sort of news show. So get involved. Head over to @Latte Firm on socials.
Breakdowns? Because me and you
we'll
are
do
the pioneers of breaking players down.
Do you know, I appreciate that, man. They're by far the most popular sort of videos we have on the channel. They will be back, starting with a Martin Zubimendi special. So keep an eye out on those as well.
Yeah, with me and FK this summer, you are going to be fully inundated with info on players this summer. So make sure that you're, as soon as you finish watching an FK breakdown, you watch ours. And as soon as you finish watching ours, you go watch FK's. That's how it works. Expose yourself to as many opinions, wrong and right, that you can. It's what this is all about. But yeah, as I said before, genuine pleasure speaking to you, mate, as always. And I wish you all the best for the summer and the new season. I'm sure we won't leave it as long to have you on again next time, and vice versa, of course, when scheduling allows.
Absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you again, FK. Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Apologies it isn't live, as I mentioned before. If you're wondering why hasn't Tom been answering my questions, I've been typing them furiously in his chat box. I am away on a stag do this weekend. You're going to have another piece of content available for you on Sunday. Not sure about Monday, hopefully, but maybe not. I mean, 2 pre-recorded shows. I think it's pretty good, considering I'm not here for 3 of them. So I hope you do appreciate the effort that goes into putting on these shows for you, despite me not being here. And there'll be some of that while I'm away in Canada as well during the mid part of June. So look out for those when they drop, and continue to support us and come back when we do as well at the end of June also. But see you tomorrow morning, and stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful, and as always, up the Arsenal.